Charlie is in Weymouth. Charlie, what would you like to say?
I would like to make 2 points. I'm going to correct you on your 7-year thing, and then I'm going to fill in the gap in your knowledge.
I've got the HM Revenue and Customs page in front of me on the 7-year thing.
Perfect. So
it's not me you're correcting. It's the official advice.
No. It is you. Okay. You've got the wrong end of the stick.
Okay.
But so with the 7-year thing, are you happy that a farmer can pass it on in 7 years inheritance tax free?
Hang on, you're supposed to be correcting me.
Yeah. No, I'm asking you a question.
Oh. Am I happy? Well, everyone enjoys that freedom. So I mean, in an ideal world, probably get rid of all the loopholes. But I think that would be brutal.
So why is it then that it's acceptable to pass on a farm in 7 years from now, but for someone that's worked on that farm for the last 40 years, all of a sudden they can't get that? If their dad died 2 years ago, if their parents die in before this thing comes in, they're going to get hit by inheritance tax. They've worked that farm for their entire life.
Yes.
Why is that? Why is that different?
You've just explained why it's different because the rules have changed.
So exactly
to meet the new need, and also, of course, 1984 was the point this was introduced. So
that's right.
So 40 years is the perfect point to pick, isn't it? Because prior to 1984, you'd have been paying more inheritance tax, and all those farms.
No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't.
Yes, you would. So how was that fair?
No, they wouldn't, because 40 years ago, farmland wasn't the price it is now.
But the percentage that you'd pay on it would have been the same, not the total.
Yes,
exactly, but tax is all about percent. I'm enjoying being corrected by you, Charlie, but you must let me get a word in edgeways. Tax is all about percentages, not totals. It's about the proportion of the total that goes to the taxman. So because of inflation, hang on. Because of inflation, obviously all the numbers are going to be higher.
It's not inflation.
Okay, well, because of some mysterious magic formula, all the numbers are going to be higher than they were 40 years ago. But just to show you politely the error of your ways. The reason why rules change is because of economic policy. So your point is as valid as ringing me in 1984 and complaining about how unfair it is that you had to pay inheritance tax last year in 1983, and a farmer who passes away next year in 1985, his heirs won't have to pay any inheritance tax at all. Do you see the rules change?
No. Hang on. If you let me get a word in edgeways now, how much was land worth in 1984 per acre?
But you keep asking me questions.
No. Yeah, well,
considerably less. Well, how much was my house worth?
Yes.
How much was my house worth? How much was my house worth in 1984, Charlie? Answer the question.
Just now, you said that if you don't have the information, you make bad decisions. So in 1984, the average cost of an acre was £3,780.
And the average cost of a house?
I've no idea. I'm not talking about houses. I'm talking about acres.
No, you're talking about inheritance tax, which applies to houses. So what was the average cost of a house in 1984?
I've no idea, James. I don't care about houses. I'm caring about acres. That's what we're talking about.
I'll give you a spoiler alert. They cost a lot less 40 years ago than they do now.
£3,788.
But the percentage of tax that you pay is the same regardless of how much the estate is worth.
Right, so you're quite happy. You're quite happy that they can get.
I don't know that I'm happy, Charlie. I mean, that's an existential question. But if I'm offered a choice,
and now I tell you what, because we're not going to agree on this, I'll tell you why.
We can't disagree about counting.
I will tell you.
It's not an opinion. It's just counting.
Stop talking over me and let someone who actually knows speak for once. And I know that's difficult for you, James.
Why are you so rude, Charlie? It's not my fault.
Rude.
It's not my fault. You've just made.
You're the rudest person on the radio because you sit there with your twiddling your knobs.
I'm the second rudest person on the radio at the moment. At this moment, Charlie, it's not my fault you're feeling silly. It's now 2024.
Blah blah blah.
Okay,
the point is, I know what I'm talking about. You don't, and you won't listen.
I'll be quiet for a full 60 seconds.
Fantastic. Right. Okay. I'll tell you why it's different when a farmer inherits a farm and when I inherit my parents' house. So when I inherit my parents' house, my personal house, my job, my pension, my investments, they are all protected. Do you understand that?
It's not true. You have inheritance tax to pay on the estate that you inherit from your parents. You just pay double what you would on farmland.
No. My job is protected. I pay inheritance on the asset I inherit.
Yes, the asset.
Yeah, exactly. So my house...
And the farm isn't that...
Well,
I'm supposed to be quiet. Carry on. But if you say things that aren't true, I have to interrupt.
My house is not impacted by me inheriting my parents' house. Do you agree with that? my personal income, my personal job, my personal investments are not impacted by me inheriting my parents' house.
Well, unless it's a B&B and you work there or something like that, unless the property is part of your business. But this is about agricultural land.
Right, okay, so now let's talk about agricultural land. So when a farmer inherits his farm that he's been working on for all of his life, that is his
not
house.
necessarily. We just spoke.
Going to be quiet.
But you've had 60 seconds
so
now.
You're talking over people again, James.
But you're not making sense, Charlie.
Well, you haven't let me finish.
Okay,
you haven't let me finish, James.
You finish then, Charlie.
So when a farmer inherits his farm and he can't afford to pay that inheritance tax because it's hundreds of thousands of pounds and he only makes £30,000 a year.
Well, can we crunch the numbers quickly?
That's his home, James.
Can we crunch the numbers quickly?
Yeah, by all means.
So hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of tax, presuming, of course, that it's passed from spouse to spouse and then to heir. So it's in excess of £3 million. So for hundreds of thousands of pounds at a 20% tariff, regardless of what the figure is, the percentage is 20%. You'd have to be living in an estate worth sort of £6, £7, or £8 million.
No, 4.5 million, James.
No, hundreds of thousands of pounds. You said.
4.5, yeah, exactly.
So that's 1.5 million, 20% of 1.5 million over 10 years.
Yeah, and how are you going to pay that?
40% for everybody else.
How are you going to pay that when you earn 25 grand a year?
The same. Well, I don't. How can you possibly be arguing, Charlie? Charlie,
my house is protected. When a farmer inherits his farm, his house is at risk.
Why don't you sell some stuff?
Like what, James?
Well, some of your land.
Who's going to buy it? Who's going to buy it?
I don't know. Lots of people are trying to buy land. We spoke to.
No, that's the funny
what
thing.
do you want a name?
Farmer's not going to buy it,
John.
are they?
John's going to buy it. John is going to buy it.
John's going to build solar panels on it.
John. I don't know what he's going to do with it, but he's going to. But you asked me who was going to buy it, which you don't recognise.
We've had the offers.
You're shouting at me
solar
again.
Panels. We've had the offers for wind farms.
Well, there you go. Then what are you complaining about?
Because we don't want to concrete over the land. I know you're a townie. I know you're happy living in your liberal elite world of London. But for us, the countryside is the countryside. It's where our food comes from, James.
So you've been offered.
To have forgotten that.
You
seem to have forgotten that, haven't you, James?
Charlie, you don't.
Accept it.
Okay, mate. I'm going to have a
I'm
little.
not your mate. I hate you. I think you're an idiot.
Okay.
I think you're a lefty, liberal, woke idiot.
Okay, Charlie. The thing about solar panels or indeed wind farms is that they create energy. Now, can you think of any profession?
I'm an electrical engineer, James. I know how that works.
Can you think of any profession you have some experience of that uses a lot of energy?
Yeah, absolutely.
What?
I'm an electrical engineer, James. So all of the things I do requires a lot of energy.
Oh, okay. So finding ways to produce energy. At the moment, what's rapeseed oil used for?
Oil, cooking oil for a start.
No, what's it used for? It's used to produce energy, right?
No, cooking oil.
That's heat.
No.
Yes.
Cooking oil, James. When you go and get a bottle of oilseed rape out your cupboard, where do you think it came from?
That's not all the rapeseed. The industrial production of oil is part of the energy production process, and the same is true of solar panels. Mate, they are telling you that they're going to give you money with which you can then pay your inheritance tax, and you're saying, I don't want it. I want to carry on earning a pittance.
Exactly.
Oh, well, then we're in agreement then.
We're farming an outstanding area of natural beauty. We don't want to see solar panels there. I'm shocked, but not surprised that you do.
Well, I don't like fossil fuels.
Oh, well, in that case, let's tarmac the countryside.
No,
James doesn't like fossil fuels. Let's tarmac the AOMBs. Let's tarmac them. Yeah, get some solar farms on there. Yeah, why not, James? Hey, James, you like immigrants. You probably want to see some homes there as well, don't you?
Well, down with homes.
When was the last time you went to a farm?
Down with homes.
When was the last time you went to a farm?
When was the last time I went to a farm? Is that a trick question?
No.
About 3 months ago.
3 months ago, right. What was you doing on that farm?
I was buying pumpkins.
Right, okay. So you've never
less than three.
Farm.
I grew up on a working farm. This is such a strange argument. In a sentence, I grew up on a working farm. I probably should have mentioned that sooner. I grew up just outside Kidderminster in Worcestershire. The farmers are all around Chaddesley, Corbett, and that area.
So what? Your dad was a farmer?
No, I've explained several. Do you listen to this program?
So when you? No, I don't.
Well, how can you have such strong?
I think you're an idiot.
How can you have such strong views about me then?
Because the few times I have listened to you, I heard how you speak to people. You talk over them and cut them off, like you've done to me.
Down with that sort of thing, Charlie?
You are down with that, I know. That's what you
I
love.
mean down with talking over people and shouting at them.
Oh, I'll shout at you. I'll give you everything that you try and give me.
I've tried to give you a fair hearing.
You haven't. You haven't at all.
Okay.
I pointed the facts to you and you won't accept it.
Okay.
You know nothing, James. Stick in your London liberal lefty wokeism. You know nothing about farming.
It's 10:53.
How are you? All right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, well, I have heard such nonsense as that last caller before, because that's what you get. You get an answer, but you don't really get anything out of them, any substance about immigration, and you don't feel safe walking down the street. So I'll tell you about my experience of immigration, because all this nonsense, I don't see it. See, I'm 55. Been a doorman for 20 years in my community. I look like a doorman. I know what I look like. But I'll tell you now, you have to make adjustments. Of course you do, to people that may be different, maybe have come from a different world. You do make adjustments. Like I sometimes when I walk down the street, I'll see some Asian women, some Muslim women, and they're a bit nervous because of the way I look. So I deliberately give them a nice big smile. I'll say to them, "Good morning, young ladies, how are you?" Just to make them at ease.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you my experience of immigration. I'm 55. Now, I remember when I was a young nipper in the 80s, because this is the language I'm hearing. I haven't heard, I did start hearing it with the Brexit thing, but since the 80s. And this is my experience. See, my experience is this. In the 80s, the Jamaicans and the Bajans and all the West Indians and who I went to school with and their mums and dads had come over in the 60s, and they were our bus drivers and our nurses, and look at, they're part of our community now, and we're proud, and they're proud. You see them wearing England tops. In the 80s, they supported West India. Today, cricketers, they all support the England team because they see themselves in the England team. So that's a fantastic. So my other experience is, for Saturday night, I go for a nice Indian curry on a Friday. I have a kebab on the way home. I have culture, I have colour, I've learned things around the world, music. They've enriched my life, my community. When I say my people, because I love my country and I love my people, I'm talking about the people. Doesn't matter what colour, creed, religion you are. If you live in my community, if you're in this country, you are my people. We are together. And you're right. Where you see it, you've got to call it out. I remember with the Brexit kicking off, I went for an Indian meal, I come out, and the first time I've heard it in 25 years, and the guy said to me, "I won't go in there, mate, buying that and there." I won't say exactly what he said, and I'll give it to him. I'll give him the verbals, and he got a shock of his life. And we are being told, and what upsets me more, what is really getting on me is, our problems and our daily lives and what we're going through has nothing to do with immigration. But the politicians they'll tell you that it is, especially one in particular. He'll tell you that the reason you've got problems with this, the NHS, that, you can't pay your bills, you can't do, is because of the people coming on the boats. And it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. We're together. We need to stick together. I'll tell you again another experience of my immigration. The Jubilee, God bless her soul, our dear Queen. On her Jubilee, I went to my local park where I walk my dogs 3 times a day in my community. I know 100 different ways to say hello, how are you? I went to the park. We had Neville who sells his West Indian food there, giving it away for free. Reggae music and all the brothers sitting out drinking Red Stripe. You had some Asian families down the corner giving out free curry all the day. Their homemade food with their music and dancing and playing games. All the children in the park all day playing together. The firemen come. The local Polish community came and did their kielbasa on the barbecues. And I sit every morning having my skinny latte in Costa's with my doorman, my team, and my brothers. They're from all around the world, and we discuss it all the time. And you just got to keep talking. And my gift to my community, and I've said it all my life, because my father said it and my granddad said it. My gift to my community are my children. And from the day that they were out on the street, they were taught how to think, how to say, how to accept people, difference, how to help, how to love, how to show kindness, how to tolerate, how to be tolerant, and to walk through life like a man, that your word means everything, and the way that you are every day in life means everything, and it shows the people around you. And no one asks me, no one says to me, "Are you a good dad?" That's not for me. My children will know. "Are you a good person?" That's not for me. My friends and my community will tell you how they see me, because that's my actions. That's how I live my life.
Darren, I couldn't love you more.
Yeah, I'll get upset with it. It's bloody upsetting.
It is.
He's upsetting. I in the 80s, my best mate, Tom, God bless him, he a West Indian fella, and I got a job, odd carrier. I was an odd carrier. I'll never forget this. I was an odd carrier. We went up there. It was £100 a day. It was big money in them days. And the geezers gave me a job. Anyway, they said to me later in the day, have you got anyone else you know, Darren? And Thomas was like a brick door, he was. And I said, I haven't got my mate. He said, bring him tomorrow. I said, all right. On the way home, normal, some racial jokes, blah, blah. What's your mate? I said, yeah, he's massive. Oh, yeah, well, long he ain't black. That's when it's... Well, my heart sunk. So I got out. I said, well, he is actually. And I could tell. I could just... You the silence. And I got out. Anyway, I phoned my mate. I said, Tom, because there was no mobiles in them days. Tom, get over in the morning. Mum will make you some breakfast. I've got a job for you. £100. Boom, he was there in the morning. We went to the job. You could see the looks on her face. But 10 o'clock in the morning, first cup of tea, Jesus come to me, he said to me, "There's Dale, your mate." He said, he wasn't even man enough to say it himself. He said, "Your mate," he said, "we don't really need, we're busy." I knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He said, "So he's off." You tell him we don't need him. So I said, "Well, if you don't need him, you don't need me."
Me either.
So he said, so me and Tom, we walked 5 miles home, and like my arm around him, and within 10 minutes we were talking nonsense on the way home and everything. And I'll never forget, I had to go to him and tell him that he didn't. I'll never forget the day I die. Yeah. His face, the look on his face, and I knew, and I was hoping that stuff would all fade away as time and generations go. And it breaks my heart now when we see people scared and vilifying people because of they've come here to try to work hard. They've left their families from the other side of the world,
or even those who were born here, Darren. Even those who were born here.
And those that were born here, and that's what I'm talking about. My people, there are people. We're all together. It's just, and it's all nonsense. And you're right. When you challenge them, when I see it on X, and I say, where did you get that from? None of them have got any facts. It's all myth.
And actually, what you're showing, Darren, and I must leave it there, but I could listen to you for the rest of the afternoon. What you're demonstrating, illustrating there, is proper heart and soul. That's what you've put into your friendships and your neighbourliness and your community over the years, and into your children, and they'll carry it on. That's what you have done.
Gary's a first-time caller in Harlow. Gary, you were involved?
Yes, mate, I'm involved.
Talk to me about where and when and how.
Middlesbrough. I went up there, I travelled up there from Harlow in Essex, where I'm originally from. So I travelled up there to see, to actually demonstrate my problems of why all this is going on. That's the problem.
Right, you drove?
Yeah, I drove up there, yeah.
You drove from Harlow to Middlesbrough and back to take part in the protest?
Yes.
Right. And what is it that you wanted to protest against?
Basically all the boats coming in, all the immigrants coming in, causing problem, causing grief. That's what I'm protest about. That's what I'm fed up of, really.
Which people are you thinking of when you go on these protests?
Asians.
Asians?
Yeah.
Right, so all Asians are who you're thinking of when you think of the people causing all the problems, all the immigrants?
Asians and black people.
Right. So you drove from Harlow in Essex to Middlesbrough to protest against black people and Asian people. Basically all non-white people is what you're saying?
Yeah, because they're the main issue.
All non-white people are the main issue?
Well, from what I'm seeing.
What are you seeing? Because from where 99.9% of the rest of the country is seeing, all black people and all Asian people are not the issue, Gary.
Well, from what I'm seeing, from the problems that's going on from South, look at Southport, look at the Manchester airport incident. You know, who's starting all the grief?
And the colour of their skin is what you think is the main driver of that?
Well, they don't know any order. They don't have any order.
And who's they? Sorry, the they is, again, all black people and all Asian people. And the black people and the Asian people who you come into contact with in Harlow, do you accuse them of being as apparently violent as the people that you've seen being violent who also have that skin colour?
No.
So it's not all black and Asian people then, is it?
No.
Right. So when you went up from Harlow to Middlesbrough to protest all black and all Asian people, you don't actually mean that, do you? You mean something else.
Well, that's what I mean. Those are the main culprits.
Of what?
That's what I mean.
The main culprits of what?
Causing a lot of grief.
And there are no white people who have caused a lot of grief. Like, for instance, the people going to protest in some parts of the country like Middlesbrough.
Well, they're just protesting their anger.
But again, sir, they're also causing a trouble, aren't they? Those white people protesting their anger. They're also burning shops, looting, kicking people's heads in, throwing bricks at the police, aren't they? So are they also causing trouble?
Yes.
Right. So it's not just that non-white people cause all the trouble. We agree that white people cause trouble too, don't we?
Yes, we do, yeah.
What did you drive up from Essex to Middlesbrough to do again?
To demonstrate my anger towards what's going on with a lot of the immigration rules. A lot of immigrants are coming in on the boats, and predominantly they're coming in from Middle Eastern Asian countries.
But why do you need to make this an issue of skin colour, Gary, when you've just come on the radio to agree that, of course, not all black people cause problems, or all Asian people, and indeed some white people cause problems too? Why do you need to make it about skin colour?
I'm not making it about skin colour, but they're projecting the wrong image.
You rang up and said the reason you went on this protest is to protest against black people and Asians. All blacks and all Asians is what you said.
Well, 95% of them are problematic people.
How did you get to 95%, sir?
It's been proven statistics.
Where? Who? Show me. Tell me. You got in the car and you drove all those hours up to Middlesbrough to go and protest something that you can't evidence, for which there is no evidence to say they're 95% of the problem.
Well, this is what I've read.
Where?
On the internet, I've read it. On the internet, I've read it.
And do
problem after problem.
Do you take what you've read on the internet that 95% of black and Asian people are the problem? You take that as a fact?
Well, that's what I think. Yeah.
And why do you think that? Because you believe it.
Because look at Southport. Look who was the culprit in Southport? Who was the culprit in the Manchester?
Well, actually, arguably, a culprit in Manchester was a white police officer.
No, but who started it? That's the problem.
And you know who started it?
Yeah, I saw the video.
Right, but that's also not proof, is it? Because there might have been a video before the video that you've seen, the conversation of which we're not party to because we weren't there. Gary, let me ask you this. Do you think you were born racist?
I'm not racist.
Because I think you are, sir, but I don't think you were born racist. I think you've grown into your racism, and your racism has led you to drive, in this case, from Harlow to Middlesbrough, to go and protest at something that is unevidenced and not true, which you agree is unevidenced and not true.
I'm trying to protect England.
From who?
From the invasion of illegal migrants. Maybe some people don't see that, but I see what's going on.
Well, with respect, I think what you see and other people not seeing what you... I think people see what you see but don't come to your conclusions, Gary. There is a problem with small boats arriving. I think that is a problem, and that has to be dealt with, and successive governments have told you to stop the boats. But nobody, Gary, has said that the problem is all black and all Asian people.
Well, that's my view on it.
Do you ever think that you might be wrong?
No, I'm not wrong.
Right.
All my mates think like me.
Yep. There can be lots of racists.
All my mates think like me, and all my mates are prepared to do anything to stop it.
Are some of your mates Asian or black?
No.
Right. And when you come into contact with various services, the NHS or your dentist or your doctor or whoever, or the person serving you at the till in the shop, and they're not white, do you think they are lawless as others are?
I don't know what they're doing.
But they're not, are they? I mean, there they are holding down a job. In some cases, there they are attempting to save your life in parts of the NHS. God forbid something awful were to happen to you. You might have a black doctor, a black woman, black man trying to save your life. Would you worry about that?
No.
So it's not all black people then, is it?
No.
So why did you make it about race when you went up to Middlesbrough to go and protest?
Because, as I told you, what's going on, what happened, I made it about that because of Southport and the Manchester incident.
You use the colour of their skin to say all black people are therefore a problem.
Yeah, because those are the main problems that's out there right now.
But you also agree that it's not all black people, don't you?
Yeah, but as I said...
So how can those two things... I'm going to give this 30 more seconds, Gary, because maybe we're getting somewhere. How can you have two things that are opposite be true at the same time? It is all black people, and it isn't all black people. How can you hold both of those things to be true? Either it's one or the other. Which do you think it is?
Well, maybe 5% is all right.
Maybe 5%.
If that.
Right.
But the other 95% are wrong ones, mate.
And you get to the 95% figure because you read it on the internet?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Do you think you should be arrested?
No, for what reason?
Well, what did you get involved in Middlesbrough? You went round charting, you went encouraging people, you were there to facilitate, to help people get their point across by chucking stuff at the police and what have you?
No, I had a plasterboard up, that was it.
What did your plasterboard say?
Get illegal migrants out.
Right.
Get our country back.
From all the black people?
Well, what else is there?
What else is there?
It's the Asians. It's the people from Africas. Right.
Africas. Okay, Gary, I've tried.
Kat is on the line from West Lothian. Good morning to you, Kat.
Yes, good morning, Matthew. Apologies, I've never phoned in before.
Oh, don't apologise. Welcome. Thank you.
But thank you for having me on, and clearly I'm quite passionate about this, and that's the reason I've dialed in. Now, what my point is, Matthew, on this, my son is at a private or an independent school, first of all. But my point on the fact that they're adding VAT and that us parents, who are apparently very, very rich and elite, have to then pay this extra VAT, which will be passed on.
Not extra VAT. VAT. You haven't paid VAT on it before, historically, since that was introduced.
The point on this is that the state schools are funded by the government. Now, if you look on the Gov website, it's just short of £8,000 a year. Now, we don't get that, okay? So, therefore, by default, that is going into the system. You understand?
Yeah, I do understand.
Every year we don't get funded. I don't want to be funded by the government.
But that's your choice, isn't it? That's your choice. You're not funded by the government. You're funded by taxpayers.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's no way that I want to be funded. It's a choice that I've made for my son. However, in any programme, this has never, ever been brought up or discussed that I've heard of. But it is a very important
It was discussed.
point.
It was discussed by Michael Pike 9 minutes ago. He said exactly that.
I missed that.
No, he said that you're. In fact, no, I think it was McGovern. He said you're paying twice. But it's a choice.
Yes.
And it's also, if I may say, absolutely irrelevant to the argument about VAT, which is VAT goes on just about everything. Why should fees for a privileged few, because it is a privileged few, you might not feel privileged, but you are more privileged than someone who can't afford it. Why should fees for those privileged few be VAT free? Why should private schools remain charities? Seems bizarre to me.
Because they do a lot of charity work.
Oh, do they?
And they fund places. So in my son's school, there's 2 people in his class that is fully funded.
Two
because
people.
Of that.
2 people.
Yeah.
That's proper charity. That is. So
It is in
you would
the
feel that if everybody
there's
paid,
many other
if everybody
classes
paid
on top of
20%, if everybody paid their VAT, we wouldn't have to argue about what wonderful work charities
Matthew,
are doing, raising 2 children up when you're actually helping 93% of the nation's children.
Yeah, so another point, Matthew, on this is the Edinburgh question, and I don't know if you've heard of that.
Go on.
But 30% or 1 in 4 pupils in Edinburgh go to private schools or independent schools. There is no places, so this is where my point is, there is no places that's not been well thought out to say people who have to take their children out of that school and put them into state school, there aren't the places there. So I understand that having a policy in place, but the fact is it's not well thought out.
But there's not much evidence yet, in fact, no evidence of this mass migration that everybody's been talking about. There are more private schools opened than closed in the last year. So we're worrying about something that hasn't happened. Ironically, it's a worry that's perpetuated in the pages of the Daily Telegraph that advocated for Brexit, which has allowed the Labour government to put VAT on school fees.
Yeah. And I
that
think
was rather
the thing is,
stupid and short-sighted, wasn't it?
It certainly was. And I don't think, the thing is, they've put this in so fast that they haven't actually looked at it properly. And that's my point on this, is that, you know, when you're putting a policy such as this in place, and for me, I'm certainly not rich or elite or anything like that, and I have to seriously consider taking my son out of school.
Can you appreciate, Kat, can you appreciate that you don't think you're rich and elite, but you can afford to send your child to a private school? Yeah. Now, if you can't afford to send your child to a private school, how would you describe those people that can't afford it? Skint, impoverished, broke, normal? What are they?
No.
If you're not privileged, what are they?
They're normal people.
They're normal people. So you're not a normal person. You're not a normal person.
I am a normal person.
So you're the same. You're saying you're the same as someone who can't afford to send their kids to private school.
What I do is I prioritise my funds, and I know this is something.
What an insult! What an insult to everybody else who hasn't got enough funds to prioritise. It is.
Personally,
you're saying you manage your money better than other people.
Don't. A lot of people don't do that, is what I'm saying.
Right, okay.
I do that.
So it's other people's fault. All right, Kat, I get it. You made your point clear that you manage your money better than everybody else, which is why you're normal and your kids have a privileged education. So the 93% of people listening whose kids get a state education, you've heard it from Kat, you misuse your money. You are normal, you're just like her. Your kids could have a private education, but you're bad parents.
While we've got you, I did want to ask you about something that you said the other day, and I think it would have surprised some people, because throughout your career you've been known as a campaigner for equality, and you made some remarks to Novara Media about what children are being taught about sexuality. Just in case the listeners haven't heard it, this is what you said.
No, 3 of my children go to school, a Catholic school in Scotland, so they have some protections for the moment, although the SNP government's threatening to remove some of those protections. But my other 2 school children are taught in England things that I don't want them to be taught, and at an age I don't want to be taught. That relations, that gay relationships are exactly the same and as normal as a mum, a dad, and kids. I want my children to be taught that the normal thing in Britain, in society across the world, is a mother, a father, and a family. I want them to be taught that there are gay people in the world and that they must be treated with respect and affection, as I treat my own gay friends and colleagues with respect and affection. But I don't want my children to be taught that these things are equal, because I don't believe them to be equal. Apart from anything else, the human race would no longer exist. If it was normal, then it would be the end of humanity over a couple of generations.
So, Mr. Galloway, just to recap what you said there, I don't want my children to be taught that these things, i.e. gay relationships and heterosexual relationships, are equal because I don't believe them to be equal. We'll come back to the question of the other word you use, which is normality.
Well, we won't
but
actually.
specifically on being
Lewis,
equal. Why aren't they equal?
Lewis, we won't actually come back to it because, first of all, that's not what this interview is about. You got this interview to talk about the election. Secondly,
you don't think that these are important remarks?
Lewis,
you're a leader of a party.
Lewis, this is a clip of a clip. It's an edited clip.
No, it's not. No, it's not an edited clip.
Yes,
no, it's not.
It is a
full 90 seconds of what you said.
No, it isn't. You clipped out the point about the 97 genders.
No. That's a separate question. You chose
agenda. You clipped it out.
Gender what?
Don't think I don't know what I said.
We just played what you said, Mr. Galloway. We want to know.
You clipped it out. Look, I'm not going to have a Barney with you because
I don't want a Barney. I'm just trying to understand what you said.
I came on here to speak about the elections.
Of course.
Now you're ambushing me.
It's not an ambush, Mr. Galloway.
Edited clip.
It's not an edited clip.
So
it's an unedited clip.
I've got a simple answer.
Why aren't gay relationships equal to heterosexual relationships, Mr. Galloway?
Listen to the whole thing tonight.
Why? I've listened to the whole thing. Why aren't?
You haven't given your
Mr. Galloway, you're not.
Thing.
No, you're misleading my listeners in saying that. You're misleading my listeners.
I'm sorry?
You're misleading my listeners in saying that because we have not edited the clip. That is a full 90-second exchange.
You did edit the clip.
No.
You cut out the transgender bit.
The transgender bit is separate. You were the one who chose to introduce. Yes, it is part of the longer 2.5 minutes.
I'm going to hang up now because
you don't want to explain yourself.
Thinking.
It's not a fool. You're a politician. Oh, grow up, Mr. Galloway. Come on.
Or fool me thinking that your request that I come on and talk about the elections was genuine.
Of course, it was genuine. Well, there you go. You heard it there, Mr. Galloway refusing to answer a very, very simple question, and you can make up your own mind as listeners as to what you think about that.
Let's go straight to the call. Sam is in Edgware. Sam, good evening.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
Very well. How can I help you, Sam?
I listen to you all the time. It's an absolute pleasure. I have a statutory disability under the Equalities Act of 2010. I'm getting nowhere with reasonable adjustments, and it's got to a point where I am considering legal action. What do you advise?
Right. First of all, Sam, is this in employment? Is it provision of goods or services?
Provision of goods and services, not providing auxiliary aids, and
right.
also
what goods or services
from discrimination.
What goods or services are you trying to get hold of? What are you trying to buy?
Just like a standing desk, or moving over.
So this is employment.
Music.
This is employment.
Yes. Employment.
Employment. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Provision of goods and services is something different. That's things like hotels or shops. But this is your job.
No, it's PCP. Excuse me.
Tell me what you... Sam, try not to use legal technical phrases. I know what they mean, but I don't need them, and others might not know.
I've just been reading non-stop.
Just let me ask you some questions, Sam. What do you do, first of all?
I'm a estate agent.
You're an estate agent. I'm assuming you work in a estate agent's practice.
Yes, sir, a big one.
What is the nature of your disability, if you don't mind me asking?
It's ADHD long-term, and I've been diagnosed, and I've got a diagnostic letter that I produced to them when I joined the business, which clearly states that I'm a protected characteristic.
What adjustments do you want them to make?
So I said to them at the beginning, we'll try some stuff, but I'll come back to you. And now it's been 4 months that I'm in the business. Every time I've tried to, talk about it or get somewhere with it, they've provided a couple, which I'm grateful, but overall, it's just been a hesitancy of providing it.
Sam, back to the question. What adjustments do you want them to make?
So I've got a list of about 15, and these standing desk, moving my seat, controlling the music in the office so I'm not distracted, giving me regular breaks. A couple of them they have done. But I've also tried to be very astute in the way I'm asking them. I'm drawing it down to the symptoms of my disability, just a general understanding, sympathy. But I've got nowhere, to a point where they try to sort of set me up, and now it's gotten really bad.
Okay,
I've been
Sam. Sam, can I ask you some questions?
Sure.
First of all, the adjustments that you request and that an employer is obliged to give have to alleviate the symptoms of the disability. They have to make it easier for you to fit into the workplace and do your job.
Exactly.
In what way does a standing desk help someone with ADHD? It might do, but to me a standing desk would normally go with a physical disability.
Yes, so a standing desk will allow me to move as I'm doing my work, so it will give me sort of a stimulation that I need, because if I get bored, then my brain does not engage.
Right, why can't you move if you're sitting at a desk? Why can't you stand up?
I can, but it's something that was, said they were going to do, but they haven't done it for 4 months. That's not really important. The most important is that it's gotten to a point where...
Right, tell me, Sam, don't tell me the ones that aren't important. Tell me the one that is important. What's the critical adjustment you need made?
The controlling of the music and the managers to only control the music. I've raised the grievance, and now I am suspended, and they haven't even got occupational health involved yet.
Okay.
But now I'm facing suspension, probably a disciplinary. So I've approached ACAS, I opened the case, I've been backing up everything to myself, and I'm just terrified. I just want some advice.
Right.
I have legal home protection as well, and legal employment cover.
Good. Right. First of all, what do you want me to talk to you about? Do you want me to talk to you about the adjustments, or do you want me to talk to you about the grievance, or about the suspension? It sounds like you're throwing a lot at me. I need a little bit of focus.
Yes. The reasonable stuff, I know that already. It's what I do now. I'm suspended. They're investigating some bogus charges.
Right.
I've raised the grievance against the...
Sam, please let me ask you a question. What are the grounds for the suspension?
So when I joined the business, I didn't want to tell them about my disability, and I wanted the automatic vehicle. I made a fake doctor's letter.
Sorry, you made a fake what letter?
A doctor's letter.
You faked a doctor's letter, okay.
Yes. And a second thing they found was I'm a director of a company which I completely forgot about, that's completely dormant, but they're putting that against my employment contract. The company's never traded. I've never filed anything on it.
Yep.
And
does your employment contract say you're not allowed to be a director of a company?
It says you can't engage or have shares or be director, but the wording is you can't engage. I've never engaged in it. It's just been sitting there.
I've never, I totally get that you can't engage, you can't work in a competing business or another business, which you're not doing. It's very common to have clauses saying you shouldn't have more than a 5% shareholding in a company. I've never heard of a clause saying you can't be a director of a company.
That's what it says there. And also, I was thinking of maybe the company nature, I'm going to change it so it doesn't say real estate.
So it doesn't say what, sorry?
Real estate activity. I'm even going to close it down, to be honest.
So your company's registered at Companies House as an estate agency?
At Services for Estate Agency, yeah. I've set it up and completely forgot about it, to be honest with you.
Okay. You couldn't have forgotten. You have to, if you're a director, you have to file annual returns. How would you forget that?
I've missed it. It happens with ADHD. If it's not in front of me, short-term memory.
You get regular letters from Companies House reminding you.
Yes, they do. I don't offer those letters.
Are you telling Sam? I'm going to be blunt here. Are you telling me the truth here when you said you'd forgotten about it?
100%. I completely. It's not like I was forgetting it on purpose. It just wasn't. I just didn't know to think about it. I love my job. I love my team. No,
because there's a difference, isn't there? There's a difference between knowing you're a director and forgetting to declare it, or forgetting that you're a director. I believe the first one's possible.
Forgetting to declare it, I should say, probably that. I did not even read the contract when I signed it, probably.
And in terms of faking a doctor's letter, what did the doctor's letter say?
I got back problems, so I could get an automatic vehicle.
So what did you do? You faked the letterhead, you faked the text, and you signed it as a GP?
Yeah.
Fine. I'd sack you for that, Sam.
Okay. All right, but then I'll still have a discrimination claim or not?
Well,
because they've not gone to occupational health.
Yeah.
They've refused
they have an obligation to make reasonable adjustments. They don't have an obligation to go to occupational health. If they don't go to occupational health, it's harder for them.
Does the ACAS guidelines say that, there's certain ways you have to deal with matters?
ACAS guidelines are just that. They're guidelines, they're not law. If they don't go to occupational health, it's harder for them to justify a failure to make reasonable adjustments. But not going to occupational health isn't of itself against the law. Frankly, Sam, I think having worked for 4 months, they've got very good grounds to dismiss you. You fake a doctor's letter.
Do you think that's a gross misconduct? But the only reason I did it was because I didn't feel comfortable disclosing my disability. I've got a disabled badge for driving a car. Automatic.
100%, Sam. You can't. I'm sorry. You must know this. ADHD does not justify faking doctors' letters, faking letterheads, faking
it's just I didn't want to disclose my disability, and it was a mistake. But there's a gross misconduct.
Yes. 100% it is. And it's possible that they failed to make reasonable adjustments, although you've said they have done some things. I don't think a standing desk is a reasonable adjustment for ADHD. I think that's an adjustment you make for a physical condition because you can
just
push.
to give one last thing, it's very important. So I raised a grievance against the music thing. They come back to me with this. I'm now suspended. I've raised a grievance against them against discrimination, and this is where we're at. I'm waiting the pending of the investigation.
Okay, I'm just going to read you a couple of texts, if that's okay, Sam.
Sure.
Robert has texted, "Is this guy for real? He's faked a doctor's letter and says it's a bogus charge."
No, I mean,
G says, "I feel sorry for this guy's employer." Dave says,
"Okay, sure. I mean, maybe that was a mistake. But putting that aside, is it
yes,
right?"
Apart from that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was your night at the theatre?
Good morning. Right, earlier in the year, we made the change increasing the salary threshold before you paid what's called the child benefit charge from £50,000 to £60,000. That was on an individual income. What we're announcing today is that a future Conservative government would calculate it on a household basis, meaning that the income in a household could be up to £120,000 before that charge was paid. And that will mean a tax cut of around £1,500 for about 700,000 families.
OK, so just explain now. So if a husband and his wife, or a wife and their husband, they can now each get a maximum salary of what? Just break the figures down so my listeners fully understand it.
So it will be right now, up to £60,000. The proposal that we are making is that we'll now calculate that on a household basis. So income going up to 120,000, however it's split between parents, before that charge on child benefit is made.
How much is this going to cost, Minister?
About £1.3 billion come the 29 financial year.
And where will that money be found from?
That money is going to come from part of the money of us continuing to clamp down on tax evasion and tax avoidance. We think there's about £6 billion more to be had from that, and this would be 1.3 billion of it.
How do you get to the number of families? I think you said that it would be some 700,000 families. How did you get to that number?
We get to that number by looking at how many are subject to that charge at the moment. So earlier this year, we increased that salary threshold from 50,000 to 60,000, which was very popular. But we've got the data on how many pay it then above that, and that's how we've done it.
And just for my listeners who are not familiar, so they can get 40 years, how much is child allowance?
That, I'm afraid, I don't know. It's actually not a Department for Education policy. It's a DWP one, and I'm afraid I don't know the exact.
Sorry, is your title Minister? Is your title Minister for Children?
It is Minister for Children.
And
yes,
you don't know.
But
you don't know what the child allowance is.
Well, we don't run the benefits, I'm afraid. You're right. I should have found out before I came on here.
So I have to tell you, as the Minister for Children, Families and Wellbeing, what child allowance is. What sort of job do you think you're doing here, Minister?
Well, look, I'm sorry that I don't know the amount of it.
Astonishing.
Well,
I'll tell the listeners because they won't need it. It's £25.60 for the first child and £16.95 for each additional child. Find it astonishing, I have to tell you, a government minister, that. As we're talking money, when the story broke yesterday concerning the Conservative donor Frank Hester, there hadn't been a lot of notice, but I put it to your colleague Mel Stride.
Well, this is very recent news to me, Nick, and as I think we said and made very clear at the time, that racist remarks are utterly, utterly unacceptable. One of the biggest the greatest sense of pride that I've had serving in our cabinet, amongst other matters, is the fact that it has been one of the most diverse cabinets, in fact, the most diverse cabinet in our history.
Minister, 24 hours on, do we know whether Conservatives will hand back these many millions of pounds?
I don't believe there's a plan to do that. I think Mr. Hester's comments were discussed at the time. He apologised. He said he was deeply sorry for them. The Prime Minister was clear that they were completely wrong. Mr. Hester himself said racism has no place in our society.
Right.
the view was taken that he'd given a fulsome apology and should be forgiven.
But I mean, we now learn staff are coming forward. He's referred to staff as, and I quote here, the token Muslim. He imitates people of Chinese descent by pulling his eyes in a certain direction. And he said that one individual was attractive for a black woman. You're happy to take this cash, are you, Minister?
Well, Nick, I've seen that story this morning, the same as you have. I don't know whether what the truth is. Those are allegations at this moment. The bit we do know, because Mr. Hester himself apologised for it, is the comments that were reported earlier in the year, which he rightly apologised for because they were completely unacceptable.
Lastly, on the subject of apologies, it's reported that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, left part of the D-Day ceremonies yesterday to come back to the UK to record a TV interview. Should he apologise for that?
He has, in fact, apologised within the last few minutes, Nick. He said that it was a mistake to leave those commemorations early, and the last thing he wanted was politics to overshadow that important moment.
Grateful for your time. David Johnson is Minister for Children, Families and Wellbeing, talking about this announcement. Around 700,000 families to get a £1,500 boost over those reforms.